everyone, and welcome to another installment of Tales from the Forlorn Dopes. I'm your host, or one of your co-hosts, Cybersmily, uh, my compadre.
Greetings, programs. I am the co-host Wisdom 000. You can call me Derek. Um, Today, we're going to be talking about Tales from the Forlorn Hope, which is, of course, where we get the name of the show from. We have This has been our favorite adventure supplement. It's my favorite bar in the game of the established properties. We had the author of the book, William Moss, on a little while ago, uh, and that was a great interview. We were hoping to get him back today, but he's a busy guy, especially with the 2045 version of Tales from the Forlorn Hope coming out.
Yep.
Um, but he wishes us well on this one. He has kept in touch, and he's a great guy. But yeah, no, we're very excited to. We've saved this one for last of all the official adventure supplements, with the exception of the Firestorm books, which we're saving for the last of the 2020 series books we do, because it closes out the
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 universe.
the 2020 setting, as it were. Um, so yeah. Uh, I think first off, we're going to get people up to speed with the goings on in the community and the genre.
Yep.
Um,
So, since we last talked or talked about stuff, our Telsorian put out two DLCs. Since we last
yes.
talked, one was for the Cyberpunk Edgerunners mission kit, DLC 2, which is basically mods or improvements, upgrades to the cyber weapons of gorilla arms and mantis blades and the monoware. So they're in addition to your tech actually going in and modifying this stuff. Some of them are interesting, like the roll two crits and choose which one you want to apply. And like
I like
monowires, you
that
get to choose three or roll three times and choose the one you like, which sounds heinous.
one.
Um, I mean, there are some caveats on these. You only can have one per install, but it's interesting that they allowed the tech to also upgrade the cyberware as well, in addition to these mods. And of course, it has some nice trigger artwork in it. The other,
Yeah, because
yeah,
it needs to.
the other item is No Place Like Home, which is basically headquarters or a base for your group to gather and kind of improve. I like it that you have these options to help improve the base and kind of gives you some perks with these different installments that you can put into the house. I know they're kind of uh, taken the aspects of acquiring this and kind of pushing it into like an IP as opposed to any hard cash or other things. I think in order to do a headquarters, you probably need some type of benefactor or someone that the group knows who has property or a gang
Yeah,
that might
someone to
knows.
bankroll the situation.
Well, not just bankroll, but like in one of my latest or last campaign, basically some of the players, of course, did combat zone. But technically, what they were doing was they were paying gangs who own the area rent for, you know, a building. Um,
Yeah,
and one of them was a techie, so he was converting it into a garage and kind of becoming a chop shop for for that gang in return for a rent. But I like it that you have these bonuses when you're working on something inside. And I think the great thing about the main thing I like to see is that they created a lab, or is it called a lab, or did they call it for the med tech training area? Where is it? In which the med
Clinic?
it might be the clinic in which the med tech can actually now make drugs. Which I always found odd that a med tech or somebody with pharmaceuticals can't make drugs because they're not a techie.
Yeah. I mean, rules as written for 2020 drugs are always kind of wonky. I know Mike was really, really against drugs, so we wanted to make them these super terrifying, hard to control things, but none of it reflected any experience I've ever had with drugs of any
Right.
kind. Not to promote anything, but it just, like, a single hit of something like gets you addicted for life, and your addiction takes the form of withdrawals every like 2 hours and shit. Like, no one would ever do these drugs.
Well, that also
They
was.
did before it became a problem.
But if you think back in the 80s, you know, well, the mid 80s and going on, there was definitely a strong advocation or anti-drug movement compared to
Sure. I mean,
compared to the 70s or even the early 80s with, corporate America constantly doing cocaine.
I mean,
The
80s where we had the Nancy Reagan,
Yeah.
just say no commercials, and this is your brain on drugs, and like one dose of the marijuanas is going to turn you into a junkie who kills your friend.
Well, it's marijuana is the gateway drug. So as soon as you take one puff,
one marijuana,
you're gonna start doing cocaine and heroin, which
yeah,
I would say is probably like 10% of the population. But
I mean,
again, we're not
movies
promoting drugs.
With the kid, they're on the raft, and the kid like smokes a joint and then bashes his brother in the head with the oar and just watches him drown. I'm like, the hell? Yeah, everybody was. They wanted you to be terrified of drugs.
Yeah, and you can see that today, right, with the fentanyl epidemic. And yes, fentanyl is very deadly, but it's also I also see a lot of the over propaganda of it as well.
Yeah,
that if you even touch it, you could die. Which has already been turned as a bogus statement. Disinformation.
I mean, there's lots of drugs that will absolutely like destroy your life. There are drugs that will kill you if you overdose on them. I mean, we're like we said, we're not advocating drugs at all. The simple fact is if a drug is so horrible that doing it one time is going to kill you, or turn you into a junkie immediately with like withdrawal symptoms so bad that it kills you, like there's no repeat business for that.
Yeah.
You can't. The rules as written for Cyberpunk, you couldn't rob or steal enough to keep yourself even functionally high on any drug. Like they're just death sentences. So it never really worked. It's nice to see that they're taking a little bit more of a nuanced stance to it. I mean, it's still pretty heavy-handed. It's still very anti-drug, but at least it's not that levels of ridiculous.
All right. Anyways, tangent. Just because we talked about the and again, Cyberpunk is sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Yeah. So I really like they codified these rules. The one thing I kind of don't like is the abstraction of acquiring this, right? You're just given an IP and you can spend the IP whichever way you want, as opposed to either role playing it out or using hard cash to kind of like do these improvements. But then again, I'm kind of the old school gamer or cyberpunk gamer, in which I try to do more of a sim than just like just waving my hand on some of this stuff.
Yeah. But I really love the idea of, building home bases for your character. That's, I mean, it's something that has always been there, but it's always been like this really abstract. There's never been anything codified for it, so that's nice.
Yeah. The one suggestion I would say, or one critique I have for it, is if you're a writer of a book, don't be the editor.
Yeah, that's usually a good idea.
I was reading through the book, and I know Jay Gray. I mean, he produces awesome stuff and comes up with great ideas, and he works with James on this stuff. But I think if you're, and I'm similar because I'm a coder. So if I'm coding something, I know how something's supposed to work, as opposed to what a real user is going to do. So
yeah,
I'm not going to see the mistakes I make.
I will fully admit, all the stuff I've done I've written for Datafortress2020. Like I've had to write it, edit it, illustrate it in many cases. But regardless, that definitely shows that I don't know what the hell I'm doing when it comes to editing. And I'm way too close to whatever I'm doing because I get the vision and I just go with the vision.
Yeah.
And I've taken tons and tons of flack over the years over it. And it's very much one of the reasons why my site looks like it's still something from the 90s.
Yep. Moving along, so that's kind of our Talsorian Cyberpunk news. Other news is I was very shocked that CDPR actually pushed out another update. Granted, this update is only geared towards FSR 3.0.
Yeah.
I have yet to install it.
If you don't have a PC, it's not going to matter to you.
All right. So I haven't installed it to actually play around with it, just because I've started using mods, and I know that this is going to break all my mods. I don't want to spend half a day reinstalling them all just to play something that isn't going to, it might improve the look and feel, but if it's not adding any new content, I'm not sure if I really want to play with it or not.
Yeah.
But I also have seen, I don't know if we've talked about this, but there's CDPR also put out some red streams as well. So there weren't red streams. They have a podcast of some of the people who worked on the game. It's called Answered. And of course, the RED in Answered is boldface and red. So, but basically that podcast kind of talks to some of the other developers and other people who've worked on Cyberpunk, and then talk about the development and what's to come. We had Patrick on, who's kind of the lead lore master of the CDPR Cyberpunk, come on and talk about how he's maintaining the lore, and he's working with Jay and Mike to keep things in sync, and also producing his own ideas of where the universe is going. So some of it, he in that and the quarterly report, which came out, they talked about some of the things that are going on. It sounds like the Witcher game is already in full production, i.e. they're constantly working on it, and that the Boston studio is now up and running, and they're looking to add more bodies there. So I have a feeling that the Witcher games and the Red are going to be two different teams that are going to kind of ramp up independently of each other. Granted, if they need more help, they might shuffle some extras off to one or the other. but it seems like Red is going to probably, or sorry, Cyberpunk sequel is probably going to be. My guessing is we might see some stuff in, I think, as early as 26, maybe 27. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that they stay away from like promising anything, but updates would be very welcome. I mean, Project Orion's got people excited. The fact that they're moving to Unreal Engine raises a lot of questions, and we know it'll make the programming side easier. But how much will that require them to change like the look of Night City, the layout of it? Is I don't know how compatible the two things are.
yeah,
Um,
and I also recently saw an interview, and I think the interview was done right around the time Phantom Liberty was coming out, talking about the rocky road for the initial launch of the game, and similar to what I was thinking of why it was such a bad release. He kind of like, I guess, satisfied my theories that they were trying to do some stuff new, right? They never done guns before. They never done first
yeah,
person before. They never done cars and vehicles and the physics around that compared to the Witcher games. So they were trying to build that into their engine, and the engine really couldn't do it. I think that's why they're going to Unreal 3. I mean, they made amazing leaps and bounds within a few years after launch, but again, I think they were trying to add so much and really didn't, number one, didn't have the expertise nor the leadership to kind of guide them to where they really needed to go. But anyways, definitely check some of those interviews out. Even though they don't say it out, say a lot of things out loud, I definitely interpreted some of their silence as we're getting another anime series. Don't know when. The live action is
yeah,
still being worked on. Don't know what level of development that is. It could be just in script writing right now, or anyway, but don't know, right? So it's in progress, right? And I think they might be looking for who will who will they partner with to help produce it, whether it's Netflix or someone else. Um,
yeah. Plus, it's kind of still up in the air. Like I've been hearing conflicting reports as to whether it'll be a series or a film.
mm,
I've actually heard reports that it might be both, uh, but nothing, nothing concrete, nothing I would even classify as reliable, to be honest.
yeah.
Just rumor at this point.
Well, there's another anime for Witcher coming out on Netflix, so I'm saying it's going to probably be 80% chance that whatever they produce is going to be with Netflix. Fingers crossed.
Probably.
I don't
I
want to.
mean, the business relationship has been going for a while. I don't see them changing that.
Yep. Um, and speaking of CDPR, a company called Go On Games. Did I say it right? Go On Board, sorry. Is a board game company who did a Witcher game previously. They are right now. We're in the last 48 hours of their Cyberpunk 2077, the board game campaign over on GameFound, which is similar to Kickstarter, except I think it's more geared towards games than what Kickstarter does, which is kind of runs the gambit of everything. And I think this mostly centers on board games. The campaign has been going on for I think, past 2 weeks. The miniatures look freaking awesome. The game board looks
They do.
very interesting. There are a lot of previews in the preview sets they have. I noticed a lot of the reviewers were kind of like, yeah, it's a demo thing, but there's a lot of things they would like to see, and whether or not uh, go on board, go on go on board, will or goon board as someone called it. Um, whether or not they'll deliver and enhance the demo. You do get quite a lot just for the deluxe set, but throughout the campaign they've been adding expansions, which I'm kind of annoyed with that they didn't have set these expansions at the beginning, so I knew how much I should, budget to buy, and they continue to add more and more add-ons throughout the campaign, which is kind of, I don't know. Me, it seems like that's really not best practice.
No,
Because
I
it
mean, this
seems
stuff
like,
should have just been.
yeah, and they're playing
They're just
FOMO with a lot of it, right? So today they
yeah, they're
just,
just tacking stuff on now as and jacking up the price.
well, they're not
And
jacking up the price, right? You're paying for
okay, well they're
extra
adding
things.
another tier
Yeah,
to the price for this
right.
new stuff that they're just throwing on at the last minute.
Right. And my other problem with this is, okay, I budgeted for a specific amount. Now you add in another thing. And oh, by the way, this new thing also has an exclusive campaign item that you can only get through this campaign. So you have to spend this amount of money to get it. And to do 2 days before the campaign ends, I don't know. I really don't think that really put a real sour taste in my mouth around this company. Um,
I mean, I can't afford it anyway, so
mm, yeah, I mean, again, the miniatures look great.
the principle of it, yeah.
It's a shame that they're 35 or 37 millimeter, because that is large for most other
Yeah,
miniature
it puts it out of
sets.
scale
Yeah,
with everything else. Which, I mean, the main reason I would buy that in the first place was to use those miniatures in my game. But
yeah. So they
I don't
weren't
know. They
gonna.
really shot themselves in the foot with that.
Yeah, it's not gonna integrate with Combat Zone at all. Whereas the Gangs of Night City, those miniatures are the same size as Combat Zone, so you could, technically integrate them. And it's also like 32 millimeter, which can be used for your tabletop as well. Granted, it's a
Yeah.
little bigger than 28 millimeter, but I think 32 millimeter, you really get a lot of the good detail that 28 or even 25 millimeter, dating myself with 25 millimeter, didn't get you.
I mean, you're going way back.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's it from Cyberpunk 2077 that I'm aware of. The other thing is stuff of the media that's coming out. I did a little bit of research. There is this thing called the Electric State, which I guess was a graphic novel. So it's the
Yeah, it was pretty good too.
Yeah, so that's supposed to be coming out soon. Wasteland Mad Max is supposedly coming out next year. I haven't seen anything about that quite yet.
Anything related to Mad Max, I never believe until I see it.
Right.
I mean, we waited 15 years for Fury Road, with it going through various stages and going into pre-production, then getting delayed due to circumstances. There was supposed to be an anime back in the mid 2000s that was going to come out. The video game was fantastic, but it never got any additional support, which is a bloody shame.
Mm. And I know there was like controversy with Tom Hardy during the last Mad Max one. So I
Yeah,
don't
he
know
and
if
Charlize Theron apparently did not get along well.
so I don't know if that spilled over into his relationship with George Miller or not. So, or he could have just like, you know what, I'm tired. I don't want to. I had a bad experience with that movie. I don't want to do that movie. But then again, you know, money talks. So
I mean, I thought Tom Hardy did great, and I
yeah, I thought he
actually
did
thought
too.
that whatever conflict that they had, I thought that carried over well onto the screen.
Yeah,
Like that kind of smoldering, begrudging, we've got to work together attitude. Like it carried well.
yeah.
But there's what works on screen, and then what works in the actual reality of having to work with people. And I don't know. Like you said, I don't know how that got resolved. I know Furiosa was fantastic. I loved every minute of it. But yeah, I very much hope that we get more Mad Max material. I very much
Agreed.
never get enough of it.
Another movie that's supposedly coming out either next year or in 26 is a thing called Greenland Migration. It's the surviving family must leave the safety of a Greenland bunker to embark on a perilous journey across the decimated frozen wasteland of Europe to find a new home.
Oh,
so it looks
that
like
sounds
a
interesting.
post-apocalyptic
Like
thing.
the day after,
Yeah.
like afterwards.
Yeah. So
Like after the day after.
Gerard Butler's in it, and Marina Baccarin.
Baccarin, yeah,
Baccarin.
my love. Quite possibly the most attractive woman that's ever been in film.
He is a good-looking woman. I'll give you that. Yeah. So I believe they are starting to shoot that. I don't know when the release date is, though. There's also mentioned that Black Mirror has been renewed by Netflix. So they said there might be a Black Mirror coming out next year. Don't know.
I mean, I'm all for it.
One thing, the other movie that I'm kind of interested in, because Michael Mann is charge of it, and that's going to be Heat 2. So Heat was a very cyberpunk adjacent movie.
Yeah, like for a movie without any cyber, it's one of the greatest heist movies ever made. And De Niro, Pacino, Kilmer, like you don't really get much of a better cast than that. And Michael Mann is he's a phenomenal director, especially when it comes to realistic action. In fact, I would go as far as to say, as far as like realistic action, especially like car chases and stuff, there's nobody better.
Yeah.
The action from the original Heat, Val Kilmer, the scene where he changes magazines on the go while he's firing, like that's shown in Marine, as a Marine training video at this point.
Yeah.
Like Michael Mann is in fact the man.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're gonna.
It's not.
I don't know what they're gonna do with it.
Yeah.
Like,
so
I
don't.
They're making a sequel to a movie that I don't know how many of the original.
It doesn't look like
characters are going to be able to be involved in.
Yeah. So Val Kilmer character lived, and he was on the run. His wife kind of is there, but the rumor is Austin Butler and Adam Driver are going to be starring in it.
Yeah. Which, I mean, they're solid actors.
I'm wondering if this is a prequel, because they said young Neil Macaulay. Young Neil Macaulay tells me that one of the characters in the movie. Well, anyways, as I said, it's rumor, so I think it's still being fleshed out. Um, but yeah, definitely something to keep on the radar. You got any other Cyberpunk media news?
Well, the Netflix Terminator anime is
Oh
out.
yeah, yes,
I'm about halfway through it, and it's fantastic.
it is good.
Like, it very much gives me all the same feelings and chills as the original two Terminator films. I'd go as far as to say it's the best Terminator I've seen since those two, out of the whole franchise.
Uh, it's different. Wouldn't say it's better. I mean, there was
I'm not saying it's better than the original two. I'm saying it's better than anything that came after.
right. Um, when I first watched it, I don't know if it's just I've seen or I know how things plot out and stuff or in movies and stuff like that, but there was a lot of things that are
Yeah.
like, oh, they're gonna think they're gonna surprise you with this twist about this character,
Oh, well, yeah. I mean,
and I was kind of right
the
on
plot
that.
twist you see a mile coming,
Yeah,
but and like I said, I haven't finished it, so it may just take a shit on itself at the end that I'm unaware of, but I haven't heard anything to that nature.
yeah. I mean, I watched the whole
Uh,
thing. It's an interesting take, um, and and I think the whole that was well the whole Terminator universe right after uh, first two, it started getting into the whole idea of timeline, right?
yeah,
And how each time you go back in time, you're basically spinning up a new universe.
yeah,
So this is kind of taking, okay, well, guess what? We're spinning up a new universe. Um, it's an interesting universe or interesting take on the universe. But yeah, yeah, definitely. Everyone, check that out. Well worth the watch.
I
I binged
I
it in
don't
2 days.
know. I It's not an official product, but it very much should have been. Uh, they just released the final trailer for the White Dragon cut of Blade Runner, which, for those of it's a fan project that takes all the deleted footage, the unused footage from Blade Runner, of which there's literally another movie's worth of footage, reintegrates that, and uh, you get an entirely different movie that expands on everything. Uh, um, Scenes where uh, Deckard visits Holden in the hospital after Leon shoots him at the beginning of the film. Um, Things of that nature. I don't want to give any too much away of the added footage, but it's a lot, and I'm very excited about this. If you look up White Dragon cut Blade Runner, and you'll get to see you'll get to see the trailer for it, the final trailer. You'll be excited. If you're a Blade Runner fan at all, you'll be excited. The guy who's done it has been working on it for like the last 6 years, at least. I mean, that's when I first heard about it, was 6 years ago, and
Yeah, I'm seeing stuff from various ages. I don't think you can see the whole thing quite yet. I think you can just see clips.
Yeah, it's just a trailer for it. I want to say it's going to be released. Oh, I don't remember. November, December, maybe.
Well, it says
Um,
November is coming out in November 2022, or at least the
that
White
is definitely
Dragon
not the
cut.
final trailer.
Yeah.
That is definitely not the final White Dragon trailer. But like I said, the guy's been working on it forever, so there have been various trailers released along the way,
All right.
with various release dates.
Well, speaking of Blade
But yeah,
Runner, we have that series that's supposed to be coming out as well.
yeah, Michelle Yeoh's headlining it. Still very excited about it. That should be getting released anytime now, really.
um, Someone asked in chat that we should host a movie.
Um,
I don't know if we can do that.
I wouldn't be opposed to something like that. Maybe not on the regular schedule, but every now and then, just like an extra show. Yeah,
Well,
like
I
a
don't know if you can.
like a
Yeah,
cyberpunk version of MSTK.
yeah, but there's things you gotta do to make sure that the movie is right. Unless you just say, "Hey, everyone, if you have Netflix and want to watch, we're starting it in 3, 2, 1," and everyone starts it and just sits on a
We
chat
all
and
just watch it
talks.
at the same
Yeah,
time. Yeah.
but everyone has to have either whatever streaming service we're doing. Years. Yeah, it doesn't have a release date yet for the.
No, sadly, it does not. But
There's also something called Blade Runners with an S. Blade Runner Blackout. Oh, there's Blade Runners.
Blade Runner Blackout is the anime that's coming out with Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah. Some type of fan
I don't know
thing?
what this Blade Runners thing you're talking about is.
Release date of 2019. I think this was a fan thing. Looks like it's a fan thing. Wow, there's like a lot of like Blade Runner-esque things.
I mean, it's Blade Runner. It's
Yeah, something called Blade Runner
hugely popular and
2019.
influential science fiction.
True. Wow. I mean, just go into IMDb and start like. There's a lot of it. Like little shorts.
Recently rewatched late 2000s movie. It's called Avatar Cyber Wars, and I hadn't seen it since the mid 2000s or whatever.
Sounds like it might be a
Since it first came
craptacular
out on.
movie.
You know, you'd think so, but it's actually one of the better cyberpunk movies I've ever watched.
Really? Avatar.
Yeah. The only big name in it, the only recognizable name in it, is Joan Chen, who was a big name in the early '90s, late '80s, early '90s, on the B movie scene, or at least the low A movie scene. But yeah, it was surprisingly well done for a really low budget. Like there's cybernetics in it. There's net running in it. It's more, most of it's more BioWare,
Uh-huh.
but there's plenty of actual cyber and all that. I highly recommend it if people can find it. It's not very common. In fact, I don't know of any streaming service that has it.
What's it called again?
Uh,
Avatar.
Avatar Cyber Wars. It had a couple of other titles that escape me at the moment.
As long as it's not that movie that I forgot who suggested it. It was just so bad.
No, the one from no, it's not that movie. Jesus Christ.
Oh
The
my
one
God.
you had me watch. That
Yeah, I didn't have you watch it. I apologize that you
did.
had to watch it, but
Yeah, you kind of the way you described it kind of forced me to watch it. And
people were
I
saying a
can't
lot
remember
of it
the
on it.
name of it.
Was it Ben Wright who suggested it?
I think
Benjamin
so.
Wright?
It was either Ben or Craig.
Right.
And I don't remember the name of it because I have blacked that shit out of my brain.
Yeah. Anyways, luckily we don't remember the name of it to traumatize our fans.
We don't have to spread that to our
Holy
anyone
cow.
listening.
Yeah. Let's just say net running was interpretive dance. That's how they did net running.
Interpretive dance. And they spent more time. You spend more time watching interpretive dance than anything else in the movie, by a good margin. And it is. I don't think there's any lower form of art on the planet than interpretive dance. Like it is just awful. And
we have a question if we have a newsletter with all this research written down. I'm afraid that's not how our brains work. Although we probably should document it.
I mean, make things so easy for us.
I know. I mean, my main task I want to do is go back through all the interviews and it with the questionnaires and write down popular opinions of it. But yeah,
database of the things we've actually talked about, who we talked about them with. That would be great.
Yeah, and just writing it all down. Of course, right now I'm just re-listening to all the interviews we've done, and I forgot.
Meanwhile, I never listen to our old shows because I can't stand the sound of my own voice.
You got to get past that, buddy. You really got to get past
Everybody says that, but I hear it and it just freaks me out.
Yeah, once you just put it on play while you're going to sleep. Yeah, so someone would actually read a newsletter if we create it. Yeah, I can. Yeah. I don't know, man. Hard when I'm running 2 games, playing in 2 games, tabletop games.
I mean, I tried to do a blog once and that failed miserably. So.
Yeah, and also trying to have QT time with the wife, make sure happy wife, happy life. So it's a struggle to find time to do things.
Your wife and not angry, scorned.
And yeah, but we'll see what we can do. Maybe put together a list of the different stuff. I might post it on my site and then give a copy to Wisdom to put on his site. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, that would possibly replace the blog.
Yeah.
Okay. That is enough from the Cyberpunk media front. We have wasted a whole lot of time.
Wow, 45 minutes.
About Tales from the Forlorn Hope.
Normally we spend about 30 minutes talking about this stuff, but wow, 45 minutes.
And we are cutting short into our time with our favorite.
Yeah. So let's get started with it. Tales from the Forlorn Hope was produced back in 1992. The main writer was William Moss, who used Frank Fry to give some inspiration and kind of give him ideas on what he needed to write. We did talk to William about this, or Will. Really interesting guy. He was one who said he just bought I think it was him, who just bought a new PC and was going to be playing 2077. See, Arasaka and how it's been out. So definitely want to try to get him back on the call. Again, edited by Derek Quintanar, main master. Art direction Matthew Anacleto. Okay. The mysterious Ted Talsorian, who we're not sure if he is real or not. Sorry, Ted, if you are, but don't know if it's an alias for someone else. Matthew also did the layout. There were several writers, including Lisa, Dave Ackerman.
Several readers.
Yes, I know. Illustrations were by Daryl Midget and Chris Huckabout. Midget.
Yeah.
Chris Huckabout.
And it's as you're looking through the book, it's pretty obvious who did what.
Yep.
With some additional art by again Matt Anacleto and Ted Talsorian, and a gorgeous cover once again by Doug Anderson.
Yeah, I mean, looking at his art, you can see how CDPR was kind of influenced with Night City and their vision of it. Like these tall, mammoth, narrow skyscrapers just reaching up into infinity.
Yeah, very claustrophobic streets, a lot of neon. I don't know. This is just one more of his incredibly iconic covers.
Yep.
It almost bookends with the Night City and Cyberpunk 2020 covers perfectly. I would, in fact, say these three covers are among the most representative of his work and of really Night City as a whole.
Yep. So the book basically starts off with a little bit of a timeline of what's happened in the recent past and basically giving you some background into the NPCs you're going to start encountering. And I think with this supplement, the interaction with the NPCs is kind of crucial for running this game because of how each scenario is set up.
The scenarios in this book are very NPC centric. Like each individual scenario revolves around NPCs that make up the regulars of the Forlorn Hope bar that the players are interacting with. They all have very distinct personalities. Many of them, as we talked with Will, a lot of them are very, very distinct homages to popular science fiction characters. Some of them are more obvious than others. And that's a fun little Easter egg in itself. But if you're familiar with the original material, it'll help you flesh out some of these NPCs a little bit.
So the adventure's first part is basically a kind of news article from C.J. O'Reilly, who was a character of William Moss's, who was kind of inspired by P.J. O'Rourke, a real journalist, a gonzo journalist, as it were.
Yeah.
So
did work for Solo Fortune magazine.
Yes. Correct.
And,
I thought you meant PJ, not CJ.
No. CJ O'Reilly did work for.
Yeah. So
that's in fact where he first appeared. I don't think he appeared in Rocker Boy.
No. He's a writer for Solo Fortune.
Yeah, he's a war correspondent.
Black Ops. Paramilitary, as it were. So you kind of get some history around the bar, and then it starts getting into the owner and the people who live in the bar, right? So You have John Freeman, who is the quote unquote owner, not necessarily. Well, he is the owner, kind of, but more like using someone else's money. He is married to Marianne, who is the first trans person or trans woman I've seen in a gaming product. We talked a little bit about that with William, and how, where he was growing up in San Francisco, kind of was like a background thing, and how Cyberpunk has the capability of altering your body into whatever you see yourself as, and who you really bring who you are out.
Hey, Will,
Yeah,
your mic is kind of
off.
cutting in and out. Yeah,
All right, hold on.
that's better.
A little better. Yeah, I don't know what's
Yeah.
going on with
Uh,
that. Might
yeah, I
be.
mean, Marion Russell Freeman, she was the first trans character I ever saw represented in an RPG. And if you're familiar with the Cyberpunk 2077 game, there is a character who is directly uh, inspired by her, Claire Russell,
We don't
who
know if
many
she
theorize.
is inspired by. I know we talked about it, and there was some talk
Oh,
that.
dude, bartender, trans
Yeah,
bartender. Her name is Claire
Russell.
Russell,
Yeah,
Marianne Russell Freeman. I would go so far as to say there might be actually like some relation there.
I forgot who mentioned it. Maybe it was Jay. That there is some a little bit of a relationship there, but again,
Yeah,
he's.
they have yet to reveal. It'll be
Yeah.
revealed in the new book.
Yes. So basically, the bar is built around John Freeman and his old unit, which was or LTR, or is it? Sorry, LRT 601, the uh, long reconnaissance team, or
Yeah,
long range reconnaissance
long
team.
range
Yep,
reconnaissance team, but
yep.
yeah,
It served in
uh,
the South Am War.
yeah. And this book is actually one of the better sources of information for the South Am War, as weird as that is, because this is an adventure supplement. But for as many times as the South Am War gets mentioned throughout all the source books, there was not a lot of information given about it, or the Long Walk for that matter. But again,
Well,
I digress.
yeah, and they didn't really talk about the long walk in this book. Um,
No,
I think that was more hammered out in like Neo Tribes and Home of the Brave.
yeah,
But so, who makes up the bar? So we have there's a list of the members, and again, like I said, a lot of this background you definitely want to read, and because the adventures are based most of the, I would say, yeah, almost all of the adventures are based off of one of these NPCs that's in here. You start off with Gunsight, who is a U.S. Marshal. Again, he was part of
red
the,
sights.
yeah. He was part of the team. Um, he has an assistant, a young assistant, who is starting to get or work into the Forlorn Hope crowd. And again, the Forlorn Hope crowd is very tight knit. Most of them are veterans. So if you are running this and the players first come into the Forlorn Hope, you need to kind of put them unease. It's one of those situations when the players open up the door, the entire bar goes silent and everyone stares at them. And as they slowly make their way into the bar, that's when, you know, the crowd slowly picks up their talking, but they're always talking in hushed voices. So it lends itself to making the PCs a little more paranoid of actually entering this bar.
Yeah, I mean it's a solo bar, but it definitely has its list, has its little clique of regulars, and that's how it should feel when you walk in. Like the doors are open to you, but you're not a member of the family.
Yep.
At least not when it starts.
Right. You also have Hunter Murdoch, who is also a media. Ice Pick, who is a security specialist within Forlorn Hope, aka the bouncer, I would say.
There's always an ice pick.
Yeah. Ringo, who is one of the bartenders, who was also part of the military unit, but he works alongside with Marianne. Sundance is another person from the unit who also works at the bar. She is a waitress. Yeah. Yeah, with the
actual role is medtech.
Yeah. Is she the medtech? I thought there was someone else.
She is a medtech.
Oh, right. William Dollarhide, or Dollar Bill. I love that name. Don't know why. He is the actual owner of the Forlorn Hope. He's the money man, but he pretty much given it over to John Freeman to run and use as he needs to.
Yeah, day-to-day operations, because this guy is too busy being a fixer. He's also the oldest person here.
Yeah, he is I would say, he did Army intelligence, so I have a feeling he's CIA, or at least joined it at one point in his life, because he has a lot of intelligence agencies and allies there. So
yeah,
he is definitely a fixer who knows a lot. You also have Trigger. She is another bouncer. It doesn't seem like she is or was part of the unit at that time.
No, she's a little young. She's 25. She's a solo. Yeah. She's up and coming.
Yep. You also have Godiva, a sergeant from the SAS. So he's kind of a British import to the bar. She. Yep. Needles, who is the actual rubber doc in the bar, and he actually has a clinic in. Sorry, I know I just read this book like a month ago, and the clinic is downstairs or on the first floor.
It's downstairs.
Yeah,
I think.
Because I know there's the weapon shop, which is either upstairs or downstairs.
We got Brenda Canariato, otherwise known as Banger. She's another rocker girl waitress, because I mean that's the way waitressing works, I guess.
That's what rockers do.
Yeah, they're like actors, waitresses and waiters. ZZ Destroyer. I don't know why, but I love that name. He's another rocker boy waiter. And these waiters and waitresses are all like super young. They're all in like their early 20s. The Zeke Daniels. And finally we got Robillard St. James. Man, that is a name. Rosengabo. That is the resident netrunner. I want to say this about all these characters. While the adventures themselves are all very street level, like these NPCs are hardcore, no joke. Like their stats, they're badasses. Like just no punches pulled. They're badasses.
Yeah, and they definitely follow the mantra of luck is a dump stat.
Yeah, they definitely do. Because, well, I mean, they're NPCs. They can't use luck anyway, so why wouldn't luck be a dump stat?
true. But the rest of
But
them, yeah, there's a lot of 10s, a lot of 9s, a lot of things over 6, 6 or above for most of their
yeah,
stats.
very, very few of them have stats below 6. And if they do, it's like 1, maybe 2 stats.
Yeah. So that's kind of the staff that works at the bar, and then there's several NPCs. And I think these NPCs are people who are going to contract the characters to do some work. You have Kronos, which I have used several times in my game to hire the players for doing various operations. Marlowe, who she is a Militech rep, and she is also a veteran from the LRT 601.
Yeah, she is a corporate.
Yes, and
with a military background, which is just badass.
Yeah, you have Wolf, a European who's trying to find his way in Night City, I guess, kind of freelancer. You have Roxy and Kissy.
I think you have to pronounce it Wolf because
Wolf.
he's German. But that's...
Romanian, isn't he?
No, he's from Germany.
Oh, I was mistaken. Oh, Adventures in Romania. Never mind.
Yeah.
You have Roxy and
Kissy
Kissy.
Are the two most obvious Easter eggs. They're also my two favorite NPCs.
Yeah, they're also the most dangerous because they are a little unhinged.
They're a little nutty.
Well, when the book says, "Oh yeah, you want to play them," they often use explosives more than than dogging their way out of things.
They are loosely based off the Dirty Pair, and depending. And you can choose which iteration of the Dirty Pair you want to use. For me, it was the Adam Warren comic Dirty Pair. I think Will was probably going with either the original novella or anime versions. But yeah, they're my favorites. They're my absolute favorites.
Yep. You have Zora.
They were the...
What? Go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say the Dirty Pair are kind of the proto Harley Quinns.
Yes. And these characters definitely should be played as such. You also have Zora, who is Soviet solo, who's come to town. You have Axeman, who is a PI. And these NPCs that we're talking about are kind of the people who are going to be contracting the players throughout some of these scenarios. So you definitely want to read through their skills, their stats, and their kind of a brief bio that's given. It's an interesting way on how they do the bio.
Firm grasp of their personality.
Yeah. So their bio is basically CJ O'Reilly doing an interview with them and asking them questions to kind of give you a personality of them. And then finally you have Nails, who is the subordinate of Gunsights, yes. So she is also a U.S. Marshal. The last part of the chapter is basically an interview with John Freeman, and kind of talks a lot about the South Am War and his unit. It definitely portrays a lot of how the war was fought, and definitely inspirational from the Vietnam War. And reading this, there was a novel I read, it was a young adult novel, but it really, I don't know if it should have been a young adult novel, just because of the subject matter, but it was called The House of the Scorpion.
I think young adult novels in the 80s and 90s were a vastly different beast
Right.
than young adult novels in the sense.
But this book, if you want to do South Am stuff, read that book. Um, I'll just give you a brief high level. Uh, it's basically South America and Central America are run by, they're kind of like city states of cartels, and the book is basically, I don't know if too much spoilers, but basically it's far future. One of the cartel lord that the book is happening is basically he is raising a clone of himself to I forget if it's to transfer his consciousness into the kid so he gets more life, but the whole book is definitely, I could see it playing out in the South Am War, uh, just because of it. So, House of the Scorpion, I forget the lady's name who wrote it. See if I can find it for you. But it was just a weird novel that I just picked up, and oh wow, this is very cyberpunk.
Sometimes you get lucky like that.
Yeah, Nancy Farmer. Definitely have my thumbs up on going off and reading that. Definitely well worth a read, and it'll get you into the mindset of the Southam War. Because, spoiler alert, one of the adventures is you're gonna head down to Southam. So,
yep, little return to the scene of the crime.
Yep. So in the book, there's one page that kind of gives you a preview of the floor plans, which, if you look at this and look at the recent download for headquarters for Red, the main bar, looks awfully like what they did in the blueprints for the DLC. Oh, and that's another thing. Art Talsorian also posted on their site kind of a preview of the cover for the new Tales of the Red for Forlorn Hopes. It looks pretty stellar. So, first adventure called Agency Job. Before we continue, we are probably going to get into spoilers with these. So, Seth Skorkowski always says, if you want to play in this, send your GM this way and stop listening, or else pay the price. So, first adventure, you want to kind of give an overview of it?
Well, all right. This revolves around Kronos. He gets contacted by his old organization. They want him to run a mission. They want him to use non-related personnel, people with some plausible deniability. And they want this team to penetrate a consulate building and get some information out of there, get some documents. The first objective is to discover the name of the boat, which the CIA suspects is being used to insert a team into the U.S. And they believe this boat to be in Night City already. So it will revolve around. Honestly, by this time, before the adventure starts, you should, as a GM, be running the characters already somewhat familiar with the Forlorn Hope. Either they have just started coming here, or maybe they're contacted and by a fixer who's hiring them as unknowns. Although the way the bar works, they're going to want to. It makes more sense if they know at least a little bit about you. If you have some kind of reputation
Yeah.
as
And
the player. But
PW Bindi in chat says that they used rep to determine whether or not the regulars recognize the players. So
that's a great way to do things. Good
just to
idea
know
there,
if
Bendy.
they're movers and shakers, and also
No,
if in the background, and granted, the characters will have to be pretty. They can't be young bucks, but they could be also vets, right? Um,
yeah, the characters will have to have some. Uh, they can't just be chumps off the street,
yeah,
really. They're expected to not be beginners, to have some level of reputation, some level of skill that they have demonstrated. If there aren't enough players in your game, it suggests some of the NPCs that can be used to help round out this the player's team. Um, and basically, it's going to go from there. Kronos approaches them, he hires them, and sends them on their way to bust into this consulate building. Kronos himself is a very down to earth businessman. Uh, I mean, he's an old hat at the handling game, and he knows how to get the most out of a team.
yeah. The,
Um,
the one criticism I have for this venture, and I think it's a good starting adventure for a kind of fresh group. The only problem I have with this is it does not include maps, even though it talks about them. So
yeah,
you're going to have to do a little bit of prep for this adventure, in that you're going to need kind of an office building uh, for the consulate. You should be able to find a floor plan just by Googling, because that's what I did. Just find a simple
yeah. I
floor
mean,
layout. The data for it, I think, is going to be the only problem. Again, depending upon how you do your net running, whether it's just a simple skill roll or you do theater of the mind. If you do data forts, you're going to have to create your own little data fort for it, mainly
I
to disrupt the security.
I remember in the '90s. I read it somewhere. I don't know what magazine it was, but they talked about. I remember reading about there were supposed to be maps that were included, but for whatever reason in the editing process, they got left out,
Mm,
and the book didn't warrant high enough sales to
republish
put
it,
out like a corrected version, yeah,
right?
a republished version.
Yeah,
I would have very much liked to have seen those layouts. Although the truth is, uh, the Artalsaurian layouts at the time were usually pretty simple affairs. They weren't made as battle maps. They're not at any scale where you can put a miniature down. You basically just had to redraw them all yourself anyway, if you wanted to use them for that type of purpose. But still, it would have been nice to have seen
yep.
it. But yeah, you break in the players break into the Colombian consulate. Uh, it does give stats for any guards you find. Um,
Gives you the
so at
skill
least
rolls
there's that.
to make as well.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing I like about
Uh,
Will Moss's adventures, and you saw this in Land of the Free. He gives the various options and resolutions to the player's actions, and kind of gives you a quick
yeah.
paragraph on if they do this, this is what happens. If they do this, this is what happens. So you'll find that throughout the book,
Right.
which is a good thing.
He knows full well that he's not going to be able to come up with every possible scenario, but he gives options for the most popular way things are going to play out. and that's a nice change of pace from some other tabletop adventures that I've read where they're just all like, well, here you go, and if they don't do it this way, they're doing it wrong. Or alternatively, here you go, we don't care how they do it. This is what they might find out if they're successful.
Huh.
So,
just one thing I noticed. So I'm looking at the PDF, and I also have the physical book in front of me. In the PDF, page 26 is missing, which kind of annoying. I believe I bought this PDF from Art House Owner Drive-Thru, but because I was going to talk about this particular page. So 26, and this is before the adventures start. It basically talks
my
up.
PDF pages aren't even numbered, so I don't know how you're noticing.
Well, the page
Oh, I guess
itself
they're numbered
has,
at the top.
yeah.
Never mind.
So, well, the reason why I bring it up is page 26 is basically a page in which it talks about, if you feel the NPCs are too strong or if they're not strong enough, here's ways in which you can beef them up, right?
Yeah.
Or how you would add more or add more NPCs if you feel like they're walking through a lot of the encounters. So it kind of gives you advice to how to adjust each
scale
scenario.
it up or down.
Yeah. Because again, this is not a leveled system.
The next part after you infiltrate the consulate and hopefully get the information, from there it leads you to sneaking onto the yacht. Again, I think there was supposed to be some floor plans for this. There's not. You should be able to. Yacht floor plans are not hard to come by.
No.
Both from other RPGs or just a simple Google search. You'll get floor plans for yachts that run the gamut from like a little, basically sailing boat to full on billionaires sea toy. But yeah, I like this adventure. I like all the adventures in this book, but this one is.
And there's one adventure
very.
When we get to it, I'll
say what?
There's one adventure I found not that great, but when we get to it, I'll talk about the shortcomings of it.
Sure. But this one is a very. It gives you the feeling of being a professional soldier. It's not a heist as much as it is like a Black Ops mission, in the truest sense of the word. You infiltrate this place, then you infiltrate that place. Your goals are very clear. Stealth is high priority. If stealth fails, there's going to be a gunfight, and it's going to be a pretty serious one.
Yep.
But that's if everything goes wrong. But this is your first adventure for the Forlorn Hope. And this will begin the player's integration into. This is the first steps into them becoming a member of the Forlorn Hope family.
Yep. And it talks about that at the end. How the Forlorn Hope are going to treat the players after they do this mission. The other thing I like about the adventures within the Forlorn Hope is there is a section at the end of each scenario called optional episodes, in which you can kind of expand the story into a direction, right? So the main reason why you're blowing up the boat is because there's a Colombian Black Ops team operating within Night City. since you blew up the boat, they now have to find another way to get home, and Kronos kind of hires them again to go and basically kill off the Black Ops team.
Yeah, and get rid of their objective, which we're not going to give that away, but
Yeah,
it's what you would expect from a Colombian
exactly.
anything. Not to be stereotypical, but yeah, 90s, early 90s Colombian stereotypes apply.
Yep.
But you can also go to Europe and pursue other connections that are mentioned within the adventure, leading it to be letting you expand it greatly, turning it into from a simple maybe 1-2 episode adventure into something that feels more like a campaign.
Yeah. And I think if you do go to Europe, there's a good chance you're going to get a powerful enemy.
So. Very, very good chance.
So that year for the Cyberpunk, it's bad luck. Powerful enemy.
Yeah, you're definitely rolling poorly on the life path charge.
So that's
which brings us to the second adventure.
Yeah, a hard road to go. So this adventure is Marlowe, the Militech rep, who comes and contacts the team to basically guard a shipment, escort a cargo, Militech cargo, to an airfield. However, as always with Murphy's Law, nothing goes right. So the team is going to be pretty much hired to just guard a tractor trailer that's heading to an airfield just outside of Night City. The team will also be given a escort vehicle as well. One or two, I think it might be.
It depends on how many people are in the party.
So the team picks up the vehicle, picks her up. They start shipping the vehicle out. Then they get to the airfield. They are greeted by a person called Eddie Hollywood Henderson, who is kind of the rep who set up the plane. So the team is kind of kibitzing about. There was a delay. There should be a delay in the delivery. So when you guys get to the airfield, all of a sudden the plane blows up. Dun dun dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
So the cargo has to get to Texas, which means Marlowe is going to require the team to do a cross-country drive. So the team's going to be setting out on the road. Will Moss kind of maps out the locations in which the team needs to go. And, you know, normally you have the sandbox attitude of the players who are going to say, like, well, I'm going to route it out versus what's written, right? Which is always a problem, especially with any published thing, is you have to kind of follow the sequence that they have mapped out. Though you could probably fit some of these into the different towns and areas along the way. But you should stress that this is Marlowe's gig, and she is going to instruct the players we're going a certain route. You know, because they're being paid to do an escort job.
The whole I very much like this adventure as well. It plays out very much like the final car chase from the Road Warrior, where you're just like in a big truck. Either you're driving the truck or you're running escort for the truck, breaking through to the other side, trying to get to your destination. Yep. I like the character of Marlowe. Marlowe very much feels like a prototype for the meta nomad family, nomad nation. She's she just very much gives off those vibes.
Yep.
Um,
And there's two
yeah,
major combat encounters. One is getting to kind of a hub city, Tulsa, I think it is.
yeah.
During that leg of the trip, you're going to be attacked by basically Raf and Shiv, um, nomad bandits, raiders. You're going to attack the convoy. And once you get to Tulsa, there is a complication, which leads into
Tucson.
another Tucson. Sorry.
Tulsa's in Oklahoma.
Yeah. Probably.
Arizona.
Yeah, I think of Tulsa because of what was his name? Paper Dragon.
Oh,
Site.
yeah.
Yeah.
Paul Ramin.
Yeah, because I know he's from or was from Oklahoma.
Yeah. Still is.
Yeah, still is. Yeah.
Last time I talked to him.
But anyways, so Tucson, right? And then from Tucson to Texas, there's another attack, which I don't think it's going to be a surprise to the party, but not going to tell you too much on who that is, just because of the complication and what it is. So the one thing I can tell you is the shipment is basically weapons from Militech to be sent to the Texas border to help with the Mexican government, I believe. But yeah, so the optional episode is you guys keep on going, and helping the freedom fighters, with I think to the Southwest Nomads. That's it, to help out some nomad families, which eventually goes. So that's the area in which you will have to flesh out. But Marlo is good to reward. She definitely will pay the party for it, for their extra time. So that's
pretty
not too much
for
about
an early cyberpunk adventure as well.
Yeah. Which then leads into the next episode or adventure, the Impalers. This is an adventure I kind of have problems with, and not for the reasons you might think.
I mean, it's a fairly cliche. Like in this adventure, the characters are sent to Europe to work for to help that character Wolf, the Jarman. They go to Romania. Honestly, I got to admit that there's some goofy bullshit in this adventure. It's while I enjoyed it, it's my least favorite in the book.
Agreed.
It's the one that kind of stretches things a little bit too far.
And it's very cliche.
It's pretty. I didn't want to say it, but yeah, it's pretty cliche.
So you're sent off to Romania, to Transylvania.
Yeah. So, I like the stuff leading up to the time you get there. I like the trips to Vienna. I think the stopovers. There's some good, like side. There's some good opportunities for some side role playing there. For a lot of characters, this will be their first trip outside the U.S. And getting to see some of the more rural landscapes of Europe. Provides for some good role-playing opportunities.
Yeah. It is, I would say, the only adventure for Halloween that I've seen published.
Yeah, it would be a good Halloween adventure. I mean, I've seen other Halloween adventures published, but they're all from like Ionis Games.
Yep.
So make of that what you will.
So the team is contracted by Wolf to find his brother in Transylvania. And his brother is a researcher who got lost or has gone missing. So basically, the team is hired to go to Transylvania and try to find him with Wolf.
Yeah, yeah, and it's from there it devolves into the cliches you would imagine it to devolve into. Um, with the, I mean, it's Transylvania. You know
Yep.
what's coming. They
Vervos.
try and play it off as being cybernetics and Bioware,
Yeah.
but in a cyberpunk setting, it's still kind of goofy.
Yeah, but I can see an Eastern European oligarchy creating Wolfmen as like
Sure,
taking his
I can
enemies
see
and turning them
happening.
into Wolfmen that are just his dogs.
I mean,
Oh, spoiler.
yeah, I could see some like crazy dude out in the middle of the Romanian countryside pulling this shit.
Yeah.
Especially if you're running a kind of a Halloween themed game where some expectations you're going to lower a little bit, and some others you're going to raise. Like you'll make do for the holiday.
Yeah.
Nothing is entirely out of the realm of possibility. It just stretches a little bit.
I'm not going to tell you what the MacGuffin is, but there is some
No.
corporate interest into the MacGuffin and the people. There is, and again, during the adventure, when you do talk to one of the NPCs about their involvement with this whole adventure, the NPC, here's a spoiler, NPCs from EBM. EBM has some interest in the area that is worth billions to EBM. And this corporate tells the party this. Now, if I'm out in the middle of nowhere and I got a gun and they want me to do some things, I'm not going to settle for, what was it, $2,000?
Yeah, no,
This is worth billions to you? Okay. Then it's worth millions to me.
Yeah, it's worth millions to me, or you're not walking out of here.
And
that's gonna happen.
That's what I don't like about that adventure, is that statement.
Plus, honestly, the whole adventure by the end of it feels like an episode of Cyber Scooby Doo.
Yeah, yes, it does.
Like, oh, we're gonna pull the mask off, and it's gonna be the rich old white guy. God damn it!
Yeah. Yeah.
But
So
yeah, for a Halloween adventure, this is fucking perfect. So keep that in mind as the season rolls around.
yeah, your players might hate you after running this, just because of how like I said, cliche, camp. Trying to think what other words you could call this. Craptacular. That this is when it comes to a cyberpunk adventure. No offense to William Moss. I get where he was coming from.
No.
Just
it's
giving.
It's a fun adventure. It just stretches some things.
Yes.
It stretches the genre. It stretches the credibility of what's happening. It stretches what your characters might be willing to put up with. But yeah, it's got its merits.
And I
like I said, it's not that it's a bad adventure. It's just of the rest of the ones in the book, it's definitely the weakest.
Yeah, and a lot of it doesn't make sense. Even remotely make any sense. But so there are sequels. There's 3 options at the end. Highly doubt your players are going to want to follow those unless they like the adventure. They might. Everyone has different tastes.
Hey, they might be trying to get a bigger cut of that pie.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
And there's some option there.
But again, like I said, this adventure is basically sets it up for the players to make a lot of money, like retirement money. So if you do continue it, it is going to be like John Wick. He was given an impossible task, and he completed it. So the players are going to be given an impossible task to get that golden nugget.
I mean, the strongest advice I can give is when the corporate reveals how much money they stand to make on this deal that he is surrounded by bodyguards,
Yep.
like high level bodyguards, as opposed to the scenario where it is.
Yep.
That would be my advice.
Right. We're gonna have to.
The next adventure, though, it's the one that stars my girls.
Yeah, girls' night out.
Girls' night out.
So this is very cyberpunk, street level game or scenario.
Roxy and Kissy need the players' help to run a simple extraction. Keyword being simple, and you want to use air quotes around that. Yeah, they're nuts. I mean, these girls are nuts. They're highly skilled solos that act like bimbos. Like they're man crazy. They're mall rat girls who will shoot you at the drop of a hat or blow you up.
Yeah, so
like I said, if you're not familiar with the Dirty Pair, just put two Harley Quinns in the room together, and that you'll be set.
Yeah, and again, not to give too many spoilers, but basically this is a adventure of mistaken identity gone wrong with a bunch of different parties getting involved, and it's going to be a little bit chaotic from a player point of view, because there's going to be like a couple of factions that once they do the extraction are hunting them down. One of them is going to be a lot of theory on the player's part of like why these people are chasing me down, versus what the other party, you kind of know why they're chasing you down. And yeah, it's just, it gets into kind of a rolling craziness, which I think for Kissy and Roxy, you definitely want to play this particular scenario very chaotic. And I could see a lot of like slapstick stuff happening, as the girls would be definitely inputting comic relief into the whole scenario.
I mean, it's you team up with these two psycho chicks and then take on Chinese organized crime
And Japanese organized crime.
And Japanese organized crime. Triads versus the Yakuza versus your crazy asses. For a three-way rolling gunfight that just, it's excitement in a can, let me tell you. It's got the most action, like straightforward action. Just not even trying to be subtle about it, and the most opportunity for comedy relief, like Will said.
And you might have scenario in which there's mass combat. Keep it simple when you're determining what side's winning and what side's not. Just do opposing dice rolls and just say, oh, this person is winning, this person is losing. Make some dice rolls behind the screen, but in the end, it's your choice on who's winning and who's losing at any particular time. So don't get bogged down when you're running any, and that's true for a couple of these scenarios where there is mass combat. Don't keep it quick and keep it light.
Don't get hung up on the little things. If in your game there's a strong Yakuza presence or a strong triad presence, and you want to incorporate that into that, don't be afraid to just let your biases run through.
Yep.
Let the team you want to come out on top. Otherwise, it doesn't really matter one way or the other, as in anything in regards to anything but your team, and you're wanting yourselves to come out on top, of course.
Yep. Got 20 minutes and 4 missions left.
Ooh,
So, I know.
we're gonna have to make this a two-parter.
Eh,
I don't think we can get through 4 missions in 20 minutes.
oh, we can get through. You just gotta talk quick and don't diverge from the task at hand. So the next action or next scenario.
I do want to say really quick that both the Yakuza family and the Triad families and the relevant NPCs that are introduced here are very cool.
Yeah,
They both have potential for much longer reach in your own campaigns. Don't just disregard them.
definitely.
But yeah,
So
this section does come with blueprints too. So
yes, yeah, it's weird that only that first session did not, or that first mission didn't have any maps, because every single other one has maps of everything, even things you probably didn't even think you needed as a map, but they're there. So, so the next mission, which is mission 5, is the Colombian Cookout. This is the players are basically called in by John Freeman. Sorry. Oh, sorry, Dollar Bill. Dollar Bill. He calls them in and basically says, "Hey, meet me in the morning." You do see meet with John Freeman and some of the other recon guys, and basically you're told, "Hey, we're going on a mission to Southam. You're going to have, I believe, Zora is going to go with you, and your mission is basically to blow up a airfield in Colombia." Now, the key thing here is the team is also told that they have to wear Biotechnica and use Biotechnica gear. So that was an interesting thing that I never really used in most of my games, is setting or forcing the players to use specific weapons and use specific gear, which a lot of players are going to balk at, right? Because I want to be the Michelin man when it comes to armor.
Yeah.
Whereas this is you don't get a lot of armor. You are given a bunch of explosives, and then you guys are like sent on the way. You are going to be taking a ship into Columbia area. Then AV is going to pick up the party and drop them off at an LZ. And from that LZ, the team is going to basically do a force march across land to, there's not only Zora, but there's also Taylor Zarnecki, who is also part of it. And Zarnecki is also, he was in the South Am. So he is going to be with the party. And he's kind of like the soldier who is working for whoever the employer is, kind of get this done. So he's kind of crucial to be included, because he's going to basically, if the players don't do the right thing, then he's going to kind of force them to. So the players are dropped off. They head to the airfield. The airfield, you should have a bit of combat, but it shouldn't be too difficult for the party. So try not to kill them or cause too much damage to them, because there is a mission after this. So at the airfield, there's going to be clues in which there is some POWs. So this is kind of like Chuck Norris's movie MIA. Was that?
Yeah, this is very much missing in action.
Yeah.
It's very much Rambo.
So
yeah, it's like that. Those to try and tell you how popular that genre of go and rescue the missing POWs in Vietnam genre of movie was in the late 80s, early 90s. You really had to be there. It was every other movie that was coming out at the time. And this is very much an homage to that.
Yep. And it's coming from, the Vietnam. So the players are basically have to go off and attack the plantation, which is going to be a tougher nut to crack. And Zarnecki has to be in there because he's going to go and take on the plantation, whether the players want to or not. So the players have a choice. They can go and raid it. If they don't, there are consequences. So if they come back empty-handed, meaning they don't bring back Zarnecki or any of the POWs, they are going to start getting a cold shoulder from a lot of the Forlorn Hope people. So
you let our people down.
Keep that in mind, and that's something that should also be stressed to the players when they're making that choice.
It's weird to me that this mission doesn't tie into the first mission. Where,
it should.
You go against the Colombian Black Ops team and the consulate and all that.
Yeah,
it very much should, and when I ran it, they were connected, but because they're wanting to focus on different NPCs, it's not apparent.
Right. So again, there's alternate options at the end. Again, it also depends on what the team did or didn't do during that mission. So, number 6 is Fall of the Axeman. So, Axeman is the PI. Basically, the group finds out that he has been killed, or there was an attempt on his life. And the group is hired by John Freeman to go and figure out what happened. I think this adventure is kind of a request on doing a freebie for Freeman to get this done. He does offer some money.
This is him calling in a favor.
Yeah.
Or this is him asking for a favor, which means he's trading in favors, so you'll be able to ask him for a favor later, which I don't know, for my players, favors were more important than money.
Yeah. So this you definitely need to approach very lightly because it does rely on a bunch of clues that the players have to find to figure stuff out. If they miss any of these clues, then they're not really going to get forward. So the adventure is Axeman kind of was contracted by somebody to do some things. That original person got killed, and basically Axeman was yet another threat. And there's a MacGuffin that the big baddies are trying to find. And the players are going to be led to the sister of the original employer. And the team is going to find out some corporate espionage. And they are going to be hunted, luckily only by 2 real baddies. But it does take them to take out a corporate, which is always a fun thing.
This is, as far as I'm concerned, of the adventures in the book, this is the most street level noirish adventure. This runs straight like any pulp detective story, or at least it can, and in fact is very much based on that and gives that kind of feeling. This is some Raymond Chandler, Elmore Leonard type stuff. So yeah, Blade Runner vibes.
So number 7, Tough as Nails. Of course, by the title, you are going to be involved with Nails, who's going to hire you. So apparently Gunsights has been falsely accused of a crime. And the players are going to need to help Nails clear his name. I kind of glossed over reading this one. But from what I understand is, Nails contracts the team Uh, Basically, there's some corrupt cops in the midst that are framing a gun site, and the team needs to go and investigate and talk with some NPCs to figure out exactly what's going on, to reveal the crux of the crimes. Uh, this is a cool adventure because you get to ride in a magic bus and have a running
Yeah.
gunfight from the bus. So
I don't know if it's directly based on this kind of thing, but this adventure very much gives me road movie vibes, specifically things like Midnight Run with De
yeah,
Niro and Grodin.
yep,
Um, just that, I don't know, that's the movie that comes to mind when I think of this adventure, as far as the feel of it. Um, there was also a movie with Dennis Hopper and Kiefer Sutherland. It was late '80s, early '90s, where Dennis Hopper is an old hippie and Kiefer Sutherland was the child of hippies, and but now he's an FBI agent bringing Dennis Hopper in because Dennis Hopper was like an Abby Hoffman type character.
right,
But it gives that kind of vibe too, with the whole acid school bus and all that.
yep. And if things go bad for the player, there are some ex machina uh, help by the Satin Dolls, who really should be.
Cool.
Yeah, they are, but they should also be introduced into the game a little earlier because they are
I
patrons of the Forlorn Hope. And why would
Yeah,
they
but they
help
didn't
them?
want to overshadow Roxy and Kissy.
Yeah, I suppose. The final adventure,
Uh,
The Last Long Rider, which is kind of a very tragic tale.
yeah,
Um, Again, this is an adventure by John Freeman, who is calling in another favor, as well as a bunch of other patrons of the bar. So late at night, bars, you guys are hanging out at the bar, and the Borg Squad, also known as the Spar, also known as Sea SWAT. It's amazing how many names for Cyber Psycho.
yeah. Max Stat,
SWAT
C
team,
Squad,
yeah.
Spar.
There should be some consistency with that. But anyways, the Sea SWAT comes in, gets up on stage, announces that they're looking for a Cyber Psycho, and it is one of the old members of the LRT 601. And basically, after he makes an announcement, says, "Hey, we're looking for this guy," and no one speaks up, of course, because that's who they are. C-SWAT guy threatening that, hey, I am bringing him to justice. Anyone gets in my way, you're gonna die. Like all C-SWAT should threaten everybody, even as innocent civilians. So the professor, John Freeman, calls everyone down, and basically teams are set up to go and find the Cyber Psycho because they believe it is Estevez, who was a member of the recon unit. So the team are sent off to a mercenary base to go and find him. There, the players are going to find a bloodbath of the Cyber Psycho. However, some of the remainder or the surviving members of this mercenary group are going to attack the players. It is really important that you leave one of them alive or slowly dying to kind of tell the tale, in which he reveals that the Cyber Psycho is in fact Estevez, and he is a Cyber Psycho. So the team will then be given kind of another address to go follow up, which is the Cyber Psycho's current residence, and team will go there to find out not too much information other than it confirms that because in the beginning of the adventure, you're not sure if it's one or the other player or one of two possible people, and the Estevez is getting set up. So you can play that out. However, eventually Estevez does confront the party and starts to attack them. If any of the LRT members are with the party, he will try to talk the guy down. And there is a little bit of rules to prevent Estevez from basically trying to kill the players. And he kind of gives a bit of a story of his background, of what happened to him, and how he kind of is basically going insane and knows he needs help. And then at the end is again a massive combat between Sea SWAT, the mercenary, or what remains of the mercenaries, and the group and the players trying to keep Estevez alive. And there you have the conclusion of what happens to Estevez, with some possible options.
This adventure, while it has influences from like at least half a dozen sources, and I want to say the most. None of its inspirations are as obvious as some of the other adventures. Like you can't look at it and say, "Oh, well, that's this." But it's like pieces of a bunch of different things, and it's also the first time in any of the Cyberpunk adventures released up until then, or really anywhere in the Cyberpunk books, where cyberpsychosis is treated as a sympathetic parallel to the PTSD of former soldiers.
Yeah.
And in fact, if you're really going to draw a parallel to this between this and any other piece of popular media, it's going to be First Blood, the first Rambo movie.
Yeah.
But even then, it's not a one-on-one. It's not one guy going on a rampage. It's against people who've abused him. It's one guy kind of losing it while his friends have been trying to help him, and while other people are trying to take him out. It's the most original of all the adventures. It's definitely the most heartbreaking, and the most in depth.
Yeah.
And
I think when
it's the perfect. Go ahead.
I think when you're running it, you really need to kind of play out how tight knit the LRT team is.
Yeah.
And give those characters emotions, right? And, definitely play up the NPCs and show, how heartbreaking it is to them to see what's happening to this guy, and also how they tried to defend him.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be definitely these characters or these NPCs are going through mixed emotions, right? They know he's over the edge, but they also know that, he's done bad.
It's the perfect finale to the book.
Yeah.
Where the book has mostly been lighthearted up until this point. This really, it has the literary and emotional punch to the gut that a good adventure climax needs.
Yep.
Like I said, it's probably the best written in the entire book. It's the most original. It's really the best way to close it out.
Yeah. We're at 9:00. Have a little bit of time to give us our analysis. Overall, I think, the adventures in here are great, especially for evolving characters. It's definitely a campaign, because each adventure leads into and brings up the threat level with each adventure. So the adventures grow with the party as they're growing. Uh,
And not only is it a campaign in and of itself, but it's a campaign that can play out where you play one part of it here, and then you do your own games and your own adventures, and then tie it into the next part of the book, where literally this can take place over years of playing before you get to that final point. Not only the adventures in this book great, but just the location of the Forlorn Hope itself. It's such a great bar. It's so well fleshed out. Uh, I was actually really surprised not to see it represented in 2077.
yeah, yeah,
And I looked for it. Oh my God, did I look for it?
have the bar or even a fixer. Um, I mean, granted,
Yeah.
the afterlife kind of became it, but
Yeah, I mean the afterlife and the amount of detail they put into it, it was really like they merged the two locations together.
I think my next
Uh,
question, to one of the people who worked on this supplement, whether it's Will Moss or whoever, but the pictures of the PCs that are strewn throughout this game or throughout the book here. There's
mhm.
one who is Native American with facial markings. He is also in Home of the Brave, or sorry, Land of the Free, and is portrayed as being part of that adventure as well.
Oh, did they give them the same name, or is it just the same
Well, it's a PC, right? So it's not an NPC in the book. If you look at the art of like on page 53, right, with Girls Night Out,
Yeah.
you have basically a profile picture of him. And if you look at the next Colombian cookout on page 64, it's the same guy. However, it's basically one of the player characters, right? And whether that player character is the artists or is it someone who played in the group, was there a conscious decision on drawing that character also in Land of the Free? I don't think he was in Euro Tour. But if
You know
you
what? Let me see something, because that could be a question I could get answered
immediately,
possibly very easy. You said he was in Land of the Free?
yes. If you look at page, where's the one from? Like if you look on page Land of the Free on page 62, which is the New Orleans full page art, he's on that one.
Just 1 second.
That one.
62.
I don't think Huckabout did this art. He might have.
Um,
There's another one.
are you talking about the giant? I'm not seeing him on page 62.
So the chapter, the full page chapter art for New
Yeah, for
Orleans,
Delta Blue.
right? So you see the girl who's
Oh, I guess
basically a
that.
prominent.
Okay, yeah.
The guy behind her has the same
Um,
facial marks, same hairstyle. He's also on page in Land of the Free. He's also on page uh, 42,
42.
Country Breakdown, which is actually a better picture. So this is when they're doing the river, traveling along the river.
I want to say that looks more like Mike Jackson than Hawkabout, but
Well,
some
it
of their
could
art
be.
starts to look pretty.
Yeah. So I don't know who the
Um,
artist is, but if you look at
I
Forlorn
mean, they
Hope
both Hawkabout and Jackson both did character art for this book.
for that book, but
Actually, looking at it, this might be Hawkabout.
yeah.
The pencil lines look very.
So
Um,
is that
okay,
Huckabout's
yeah,
character?
this is Hawkabout. It's very possible.
So we can ask
I
Huckabout,
can,
is that one of his characters?
yeah, because I know for
Hello,
sure
Cold
that
Spider.
like Haruko Kanawa, that's Mike Jackson.
Yeah. But anyways,
So
my
is
my
Satchel Sable.
my point
Yeah,
was that
I'm thinking that
there is a player
Hawkabout.
character in both of these adventures, portrayed in the art, and I think we need we
I
need to
will
find
ask.
out who that is. Anyways, overall, Forlorn Hope, uh, definitely a great scenarios. The first scenario is definitely a good beginner adventure. Granted, it sucks that that doesn't have maps, but out of all of these books, I think the best one is Girls' Night Out that I liked running, just because
Yeah,
of how much fun you can have with it. Again, it's a
yeah, it's a blast that you don't have to think too hard about. You don't have to try. You don't have to be too serious with it. I agree. It's of all the ones in the book, it's the most fun.
yeah. So, um, yeah. So that's the Forlorn Hope. Uh, I think it's worth picking up and getting. Uh, I definitely see this as something you could convert into red rules kind of easily. There's not too
Yeah.
much difficulty, I think. And I don't think there's a lot of difficulty converting any of the 2020 stuff to red, right?
No,
Because,
especially adventure wise, because the stats don't matter with adventures.
yep,
You can recreate any NPC fairly easily. Like there's no you don't have to agonize over those decisions. I know some people do, but yeah, any of the adventures, any 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 locations can just transfer straight over. And this book is useful both as an adventure source book as well as just the location of the Forlorn Help itself and NPCs within. Like
yeah, the NPCs are definitely fun.
yeah, um, if you're looking for a place to base your group out of, you can't really go wrong with the Forlorn Hope. For a place for them to hang out, relax, meet contacts, apply for jobs, whatever. Uh, it's the best detailed solo bar in the game. So there you go.
Yep. Anything else you want to add?
No, I think that about covers it. I mean, obviously we love this. Again, we love this book so much we named our podcast after it. Um, so like that ought to give you all the recommendation for it you really need. Um, Definitely think you should pick it up. Uh, and yeah, I think we've said just about everything that needs to be said without getting too in depth into it.
Yep. All right. So, next episode is still kind of up in the air. I'm gonna try to finagle Mr. Barefoot to try to line up some more interviews in upcoming episodes uh, and see what we can do to talk about some of this stuff. I know the red version of Forlorn Hope should be coming out in the next couple of months. I know they mentioned it would be Q4. It would be making appearance, so I have a feeling it's just around the corner, or I hope it is, because I definitely
Well,
wanted to check it out. Other than that, I'm gonna wrap it up. So you can check me out on my site, cybersmily.net. I have tons of utilities, character generator for 2020, bunch of different generators for 2020. All of them are, most of them, say, not all of them. Most of them are exportable to PDFs or text files. Also, there's red utilities as well, and a bunch of data, mostly Cyberpunk 2020, that is hopefully in an easier format to look up, find the items you might be looking for. I have my own Discord site, so there is a link off of my site that you can get to. I hang out at Cybernation Uncensored, so head over to their Discord. Popping in and out there. I'm also on a ton of other Discords, Artausorians, and a bunch of Westmarch servers, so hang out there. Also on the Reddits, both the Red and the Cyberpunk 2020 subreddits. That's about it from me.
I am Wisdom000. I run Datafortress2020.com, the largest, most comprehensive Cyberpunk 2020 site out there, and it's been around since I've been in control of it since 1996. You can find me on that site. You can get a hold of me through there. I'm on Facebook at the Datafortress 2020 Facebook group, the Cyberpunk 2020 Facebook group, the Cyberpunk Red Facebook group, the Cybernation Uncensored Facebook group. You can find me on the various Cyberpunk Reddits, both for the game, the tabletop games, and the video game. Although I mostly just lurk there. Every now and then I'll pop in with an answer to a question or something. I'm on his Discord, so you can find me there. Yeah, that's about it for my social media. Please, if you can find us, reach out to us. We love to hear your comments, criticisms, suggestions, and complaints. Anything to make the show better. We very much love hearing from you.
Or any topics you would like to have us discuss as well.
Absolutely. We'd like to thank Rob Mulligan and Cybernation Uncensored for hosting us. We'd like to thank you guys for listening in, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Stay frosty, everybody.
Talk to you later.
Cybernation Uncensored.